What to expect when taking Zepbound? I'm going to discuss my experience with taking Zepbound 2.5 milligram in the beginning of my weight loss journey on GLP-1 medication. It's Jasmine Nicole. Welcome and welcome back to Weight with Jazz. I started my GLP-1 weight loss journey back in 2024. March 8th, 2024 to be specific. I began with Zepbound as my GLP-1 medication. And around that time, it was new to the streets. It was pretty new. It had recently been released. And I came across it through a commercial. And then, the constant thinking of alternative options to help me lose weight. I've been losing weight for over 13 years, okay? And probably longer than that because I've been struggling with weight ever since adolescence, okay? I remember losing, I believe it was about 50 pounds when I was around 15 years old. I specifically went on a diet and incorporated vigorous exercise. I love to dance, so I did freestyle dancing for 5 days every week for 30 minutes. Drunk a lot of water, restricted my diet drastically, not as recommended. I didn't know any better. I was 15 years old. So it was just trial and error. Let's get the weight off. And the weight came off. The weight came off. And over time, I gradually gained weight back just because of the lack of systems of practice to maintain weight loss. I didn't understand that. Then I went and had a kid down the line and got massive from that. Still not having healthy eating habits on a consistent basis in routine and all the things. So I just continued to gain. I just never really had a solid foundation of weight management. All right. Then I approached 284 pounds. And that's when I was like, stop. It has to stop at a point. When I got on that scale and then I saw the most recent picture of myself, I was just like, the weight blindness disappeared. I knew a change had to happen and had to remain. So I went on my journey naturally, okay? I did intermittent fasting. Really did 1 meal a day most of the time. But pretty much between, intermittent fasting and 1 meal a day. And running. Dropped the weight. Got around to... I got below 175, but I started creeping back up to 175, approaching to 180. And I'm like, okay, I can't go back again. That's when I came across Zepbound and, began my journey with Zepbound. What I experienced starting Zepbound at 2.5 milligram pen, the immediate side effects that came within taking that injection was diarrhea. I experienced diarrhea. Keep in mind everybody's reaction to this medication, whether immediate or prolonged, delayed, thereafter effects, may vary, okay? Your experience may not be the same as mine, but this is, the most common experience to, the medication. And is also listed on the medication as well. So I did experience immediate diarrhea. Not too long following, I did have sulfur burps. So this is a belch that follows with some type of metallic type taste. So, to me, I was metal belching, So those were consistent. The nausea definitely didn't hit me initially. That wasn't a reoccurring side effect for me with 2.5. 2.5 primarily just gave me the sulfur burps. It gave me the diarrhea. Once that slowed down, the diarrhea, it was really primarily the belches and nothing much more. I didn't really have much fatigue, but fatigue is common. And maybe it's because it was a starter dose and it was just a 2.5. Because, honey, my side effects came way down the line when I started switching doses. Okay, when I titrated up. But at that low dose, it was gravy, I thought initially. I believe I lost about 10 or 12 pounds on that dose. And then I felt like at a point I needed to titrate up because I felt like I wasn't getting as much as the effect I should be getting. I felt like it was lessening in its effect. And keep in mind that GLP-1 medication lessens in its intensity. So as the days go by, towards the end of the week, you know, you may experience what some would say more food noise. You may experience more hunger in general. Maybe around day 5, 6, and definitely day 7. For me, it was common around 5 and 6. And that's when stuff started creeping in. And this is taking the injection every week. I titrated up, and I titrated up with tirzepatide compound. So then I began 5 milligram, and that compound introduced the side effects that similar to regular Zepbound, but for some reason I felt like it was more intense, and maybe it was because it was a 5 milligram. The most challenging dose I experienced on GLP-1 medication was 7.5 tirzepatide compound. My compound was cut with sterile water. So it was tirzepatide and sterile water. Tirzepatide as the active ingredient, sterile water as the inactive ingredient. Titrated up to 7.5 after 5 milligram. Slowly approaching my goal weight, but I didn't get there yet. But I'm like, I was excited to titrate up too. And I'm like, you know, everybody's talking about sweet spots of 7.5. People on 10 milligram, you know, 12.5, all that. I was getting caught up and I was excited and I was, you know, just wanting to go according to the commonly used titration schedule. And that's what I was doing. And that's what I did. Ended up being a mistake, something I regretted. I had a very hard experience when I took a trip to Colorado. I injected before I called a lift. Was feeling fine. I didn't drink any protein or have anything on my stomach. You know, I usually don't. I was going to grab something a little bit later. No harm, no foul. Got to the airport, checked in, all the things. Got into the food court. Went and got, it was an egg and cheese on, you know, a good bagel, I believe. Ate a little bit of it, like a bite, right then and there in the airport. Saved it until the actual flight. Wasn't really hungry, because that's when the medication was kicking in, but wasn't feeling any harsh effects. Just no desire to eat. It wasn't like satiety. I wasn't feeling bloated. Wasn't feeling full. I just didn't have a desire to eat at the moment. But I took a nibble anyway. Got on the flight, planned to eat it on the flight. The side effects hit hard once I was on the flight. We took off. I was fine. I typically have an experience with taking off on a flight anyway, even without GLP-1 medication. You know, I may get a little woozy. So that was normal for me. Flight stabilized. Cool. Thought everything was going to be cool. I started to feel nauseous. The nausea didn't taper off. And it just was lingering. And it continued. Tried to eat a little bit. It seemed like it would subside a little bit. But it still was lingering in the background. So I didn't do too much. I'm thinking like, you know, it's me on this flight. Take off and all that. However, as we were approaching landing, getting ready to land, that's when a whole wave came over me. That's when it was heavy nausea, and then also the sensation to want to pass out. So I had to get up. I had to get up and revive myself quick. Make my way to that bathroom. And I was sitting next to the window and two other people next to me. So, you know the hassle having to get up and all that. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna be irritated to them. But I had to abruptly get up, because if not, I would have probably passed out right then and there. I was sweating, all of that. Went into the bathroom, revived myself, had to vomit. Plane was landing. I made it. I made it. And I thought, okay, it's going to get better at this point. And I said, okay, maybe it's a combination of GLP-1 and just the effects of being on this flight, taking off and landing. Maybe that's just it. Not just GLP-1. So I'm like, okay, let's get past this. Let's get my body stabilized. Checked in the hotel. Was ready, to go out and get something to eat. Change didn't happen. It was lingering hard. I really did not want to eat. I was feeling ill. This was just not good, because this was, it just was not good. I had to get ginger ale. I stayed pumping ginger ale into my body. No, it wasn't sugar-free. I had to sip ginger ale. Ginger ale got me through. I said, oh my goodness. And just throughout the rest of the trip, I had moments where I can creep in and eat some food up in there and not feel sick. They were only moments. Very little eating, nibbling. I said, oh, so this is what 7.5 is about? Everybody's experience is different, but 7.5 apparently was too much of a titration for me. So when I ended up getting back, I was close to goal weight anyway. I split the dose in half. I took 3.75 for the week only. I didn't take the rest. I only take 3.75, and that's how I was able to stretch my compound even further. Got me to my goal weight, started maintenancing with that, but then felt like I needed more than that, and that's when I chose to do Zepbound 5 milligram, and that's where I'm at now. The most favorable and common effect and side effect of GLP-1 Zepbound and mounjaro medication is weight loss as a result of the suppression that it gives. Now, weight loss is a side effect specifically for mounjaro, because mounjaro, which is also tirzepatide, was initially FDA approved for the treatment of diabetes, giving the side effect of weight loss. Then later, Zepbound was released FDA approved to treat obesity, chronic obesity. And it gives the effect, the direct effect of intent of weight loss. So the intention of Zepbound is to provide weight loss. Initially, the intent of mounjaro, and still is the intent, is to treat diabetes, still provide the effect of weight loss. Both medications are tirzepatide, just under different FDA approvals and terms. But everybody loves the major effect in general of GLP-1 medication, and that is weight loss as a result of suppression. These medications provide suppression at different levels, but the suppression is major, and it just outdoes any other type of over-the-counter appetite suppressant that you may have came across for years. This is why, this is a $1 billion plus revenue making drug. And this is why everybody want to get their hands on coming up with a telehealth company if legally approved, so they can provide versions of the GLP-1 medication, such as compound providers still do at this current time, and more than likely probably will continue to, unless legally stopped. But that's a different story. It's a hot commodity and will always be a hot commodity because it delivers results. It delivers results for everyone, for individuals who can't get the results themselves. And that's just the thing. Everybody can't get the natural results themselves with, discipline, with consistency. People need help. Deeper help, okay? Deeper beyond the surface. And GLP-1 medication is that beyond the surface treatment that gets the ball rolling. And then over time, hopefully you could titrate to a dose and a dosing schedule, that will afford you to be able to manage your weight, once you get to your weight goal. So was GLP-1 what I expected it to be? Yes and no. I expected and was hoping for some good weight loss, and that's what I got. No, because I was not expecting to experience certain levels of side effects, which I did. Do I regret taking the medication? No. I do not regret taking the medication. Taking this medication helped me figure out and repair my relationship with food. It still is. It's a continuation, We constantly are battling with the minds and trying to stay on track. At least I am. So this helps me regulate everything. I'm cool with my dosing schedule of once a month. And if there's a period where I can push it bi-monthly or whatever, I might do that, as I have not injected yet anyway, but I will be injecting next week. The beginning of September will be my injection, but I've been going 8 weeks without my once a month injection. So I've been dealing with managing my natural food cues and working with my hormones, my natural GLP-1 hormones, in addition to having the remnants of the medication still in my system, because I still feel the effects of it, certain effects. But overall, I believe it was the best decision that I made, and I wouldn't take it back. See you in the next video. Be real.